It's not as hard as you think. Here are 6 steps that I use to learn Chinese as a beginner with some basic knowledge of Japanese. First question to ask yourself, and the first question I asked myself was, what is my why? And that'll bring me to the first topic, which is goals for learning Chinese. Once I talk about that, I'll talk about the different aspects of all languages that are common, which is pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, speaking and creating sentences, and how I'm applying those techniques to learning this complex language. And my final thoughts on the same. Now, my goal is essentially to understand and communicate in this language. And this is because I love talking to new people. I love meeting new people. I love consuming content in different languages, and that exposes me to different cultures. I have developed a deep interest in Oriental languages, and that just makes me want to know more about all that exists beyond. I want to be able to communicate with natives, explore their culture, and understand content in this new language. Now, some further questions arise when you think about what is your why, because when you look at Chinese itself, as you can see in this map, it's not catered to everyone. There are multiple dialects, often unintelligible, that exist within this country. So you have to be specific with what kind of dialect and what type of what which Chinese do you want to learn. Do you want to learn simplified, or do you want to learn the traditional Chinese? And when I talk about I want to be able to communicate with people, I also think about why do I want to communicate with them and with which type of people and through which mediums. All of these factors will affect the way I learn Chinese and the level to which I learn. For example, if I want to be able to speak business level Chinese, I would have to focus a lot on my technical knowledge along with my basic knowledge. But if I just want to have simple conversation with friends, I can focus on colloquial Chinese. Similarly, the mediums affect whether I want to focus on writing or speaking or reading and so on. Now, how do I define communication and understanding, right? Fluency is a myth because this is subjective. There's no defined goals, and you can take the test, but like it's not particularly. Everyone has a different idea of fluency. So answering these questions help. And speaking of goals, having timelines is super important if you want to reach your fluency level as soon as possible or in a paced manner. The first thing that I would start off with is pronunciation, based on a lot of feedback from a lot of Mandarin learners. Now, what makes Chinese difficult is not that it's a tonal language, of course. That is one of the factors. But the reason why it's actually difficult is because it is different. The tones make it different. And that difference is what adds to the complexity. It's something that you haven't experienced before. You have heard it, but like the way we speak in a sing song voice, but this is just more structured in Chinese. And mastering this will set you up for success much later on. So it's not hard, it's just different. These are the 4 methods that I'm using. First is Mandarin Chinese Blueprint. There's a brilliant 15-minute video on YouTube, which if you follow for say 3 to 5 days, you will be pretty good at pronunciation and you will be able to put your put your thoughts across very well, right? Even if you have limited vocabulary, you'll be able to speak in the most accurate manner, and that gives the idea of fluency. Once you learn pronunciation, what I do is I shadow and I watch videos in Chinese just to feed in those tonal sounds and try to identify where the tones exist, how are they coming together, and I try repeating what they're saying, irrespective of whether I understand or not. And this trickles down to intentional immersion, right? Songs, YouTube videos like vlogs, Netflix series. I'm constantly listening to what's being said and I'm constantly trying to identify which tone it essentially is. And that helps me get more familiar with the language itself. Now, getting more familiar can be fun as well as structured. So it's fun in the way that you're consuming the content that you like, but it can also be structured by using tools like Yo-Yo Chinese. So what this tool does is basically, if I click on this pinyin, and these are the 4 tones that exist, and I can simply play, and then I can copy the sound da 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 da, and that will enable me to have my speaking practice, so that not only am I absorbing the sounds, but I am giving consistent output, right? This is the pinyin chart, which essentially is a combination of all the vowels and the consonants to exist in Chinese. How this is important is that it forms the base for learning Chinese. You can't immediately jump to kanji or the pictographs or hanzi. So this is like a good medium or a bridge for English speaking population. Now you notice that not every vowel and every consonant have a combination, so that's already saving us a lot of time. So this is the base, and on top of this comes the tones which I talked about. So over here the pinyin that we see, base, and then the 4 tones that we can possibly say this syllable in, right? And that's where this becomes helpful. The more you practice this, the more easier it becomes to recognize, right? Now, coming to my favorite topic, grammar. Grammar is the map to a particular language. Grammar is a map to any language. Yeah. So once you learn grammar, you can easily form your own sentences, and you can create output from whatever little input you're getting, right? And that's how you absorb the language completely. You make it your own, and you are able to think in this language. The good news is Chinese grammar is very, very simple, and it has no tenses, no genders, no plurals. Like English, it has a subject, verb, object, sentence structure. But on the flip side, that makes this language extremely context heavy, both in terms of speaking and in terms of writing, because there are no spaces between words, right? So you have to infer a lot, and that comes from the immersion part, which I just talked about. Now, how I'm learning grammar is through these resources. So All Set Learning provides the entire guide. It's like a Wikipedia for grammar. You can go through all the different topics and do a deep dive if necessary through research, YouTube, etc. There's also a great YouTube video by AB Chinese, which is grammar for ultra beginners. And again, particles are something that you also learn in Japanese if you have, but something like this blog is a go-to if you want to know about this topic. And once you've learned all of these, intentional immersion is a repetitive cycle, because you learn these, you listen carefully and with intent, and you apply these learnings, right? You recognize it, and then once you do, you form your own sentences using the grammar that you learn, and then create your output. Finally, vocabulary. Now you have the map. All you need to do is travel. So vocabulary is your car. The fun thing about Chinese is that it's not made up of letters but pictographs. But pictographs are also alphabetic. And there's a logic to everything, which is why Southeast Asian languages are so fun. They're so logical. And this will come through space repetition and active recall. So, how I'm learning vocab is essentially thinking about pinyin and kanji, and how they relate to each other. Each kanji would have a reading, right? It may have 2 to 3 readings, but that's in the lower frequency case, right? So, if I see the kanji for a person, ren, so that ren will remain the same across different words that it's utilized in. So once I understand opinion for a particular kanji or a particular word, there's consistency and I can have that relation, right? Then I'm also using Anki, which is a flashcard app, to learn these words. And I'm learning not the individual kanji, but rather words, relating them to the pinyin readings and remembering that in the next word that I learned, right? And there's also this video that I basically made about the role of radicals and how I'm exactly doing this process. So do watch that. If you want a deeper dive on how I'm using Anki in essentially 6 steps to maximize my kanji learning, you can go through this, and I can make a separate video on that as well. Now, coming to speaking, which is my essential goal, I want to talk to natives, right? Can I finally communicate now that I have pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar down? Yes, absolutely. I started off with 3 sentences, and I can already have basic level of communication. It's only leveling up with that. And this is in sync with the amount of vocab, amount of input that you're doing, and how much active recall and immediate output you have based on that, right? So what I talked about, learning a grammar, recognizing it in a video, and then trying to create your own sentences. That's the goal. And one thing that I struggled with while learning Japanese and that I'm trying to do is start talking to natives and other Chinese learners early, so that you can learn from each other and you can apply what you learn, because only when you apply, you can kind of learn effectively. And for this, I mainly use Discord, Twitter, HelloTalk, Hi Native, italki, great applications. I would rank Discord and Twitter the best for connecting with like-minded language learners, HelloTalk for random conversations, Hi Native and italki for tutors. And some final thoughts. While this sounds like a lot, it is just 6 steps that you have to do on a recurring basis. And the goal is just have fun and be consistent. Have a minimum bar, which is for me, just doing my Anki deck or watching a video in Chinese, and make it enjoyable enough so that you are able to just show up every day. So I hope this helps. Thank you for watching.